Episode 56. The social dilemma is your fault, not the algorithms.
You're listening to the very best podcast in the world on health, wealth, and happiness. Please remember to leave a review and share with all your friends and family. And here is your host, Lars Hilser.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to the 56th episode of the very best podcast in the world, Personal Supremacy Through Health, Wealth, and Happiness. God, some of the tagline sounds icky, but what's there to be done better? I hope you've had a good weekend without death. Obviously, as that was, or the preparation for that was our topic on Friday's exercise thingamajigger, where it was kind of like about, how to, not necessarily prepare for death if it happens unexpectedly, and whether you have your affairs in order, etc., etc. Which leads us to an interesting thing for today, and that is the social dilemma, which is a kind of like very much talked about documentary on Netflix. I haven't seen it myself. It's been in my watch list ever since it started to air, ever since it was published on Netflix. But I couldn't really get down to watching it yet. Time constraints are a bitch, always. And if you lead a busy day, you don't necessarily have time and or motivation to sit down and watch a, 1.5 or 2 hour documentary about the elephant in the fucking room. That's kind of like what it boiled down to. Now, I heard the Rogan interview with Tristan Harris, who obviously was one of the main contributors in some function to this documentary, and who outlined another few obvious things about why and how these algorithms function. Now, the title is rather provocative, but it is therefore not less true. Because if you boil it down, let's start at the beginning. The documentary is obviously about the social networks and mobile devices and connectedness, and drawing a line below those and others is the very addictive factor, and how the social networks, especially Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, etc., have taken over our life significantly and have made us addicted in a variety of ways. Now, for a lot of us, it's just to, keep track of people, friends that we have around the globe. But for a lot of users, it's become also a vanity thing in which they need the clicks and the likes and the hearts and the comments and the whatevers to, feel confirmed in their person or whatever. And another very important aspect this documentary obviously highlights is what is done with the information, and even more importantly, how it influences you rather than giving you control. Here's an example. Here, let's stick with the Rogan example because it's more, it makes more sense. Let's put it that way. So Rogan's got a friend, and this friend kind of manipulated his YouTube feed to display, or he searched for puppy videos. And so he did that for a certain amount of time, and then all the recommendations that he got from YouTube were puppy videos. Now, this is grossly simplified, but that's technically how the algorithm works in a very, very, very broken down sense. Now, this technology also doesn't only apply for puppy videos, but it applies for your interests, which is difficult because maybe your interests change. So you let's say you want to move forward in your life into a new aspect and you're kind of caught in the bubble. And that's not a dangerous, but a concerning thing to think about, because if you've been predominantly searching for, I don't know, let's say dentistry because you were interested in that field, or you are currently practicing it and you want to move on into, I don't know, whatever, a more specified field in that, you'll occasionally get false positive hits, but you won't be able to really advance and get info on your new hobby, for instance. Now, this was very broken down. Imagine this thing in a political sense, right? Particularly in the US, where you only have two parties. You've got the Democrats and the Republicans. And in this already really polarized world, you're going to see people not being able to get an unbiased opinion in the middle, right? Grossly simplified, because they'll only be fed with their, democratic view of the world, if they are that, or the Republican view of the world, which is just that. The algorithm isn't smart enough to kind of feed into that. Now, why am I saying this? It's insanely important that you, as a user of social media, finally understand that, one, your Facebooks and Twitters and whatever alternatives there are not free. These operations are insanely expensive. Plus, they're not NGOs. They're there to make money. So they're going to try and keep you in the bubble and keep you engaged, because with every video that you watch, or with every piece of advertising you consume, they earn money, right? So you've probably been noticing in the past decade that, particularly on Facebook, you don't really see the stuff that interests you about your friends anymore. The friends are just kind of like another way of income, in that it allows for Facebook to make connections, to get interests from those of your friends, and to serve them to you, because there's a certain percentage of likelihood that you will actually be interested in the same thing. And the same is true for political affiliations. The same is true, well, political worldviews. The same is true for so many other things, right? If your friend ticks this way, there's a chance that you'll tick the same. And then the algorithm goes and specifies it even further, gets your interest, watches or looks at what you watch and what you look at, what you spend particularly much time with, etc. This became certain when, many years ago, I started tampering with the algorithm on Facebook personally, in that I manipulated it into different directions, right? And that was possible for the longest time. Come the Rona, all of a sudden, this important piece of information gets pushed towards you no matter what you do. So the algorithm's gotten cleverer. And that's the problem, right? It's constantly developing because they have an incentive. Well, the social network has an incentive to keep you hooked as long as possible on that thing, right? On their platform, so that they can serve you more advertising, so that you make more money. And again, there's no devious, evil world domination plan behind it. It's grossly simplified that they want to earn money. And this is what you have to keep in mind when consuming those things. And that's what I'm going to try and outline to you in this episode. Now, the title is indeed very provocative in that it says it is your fault. And it is, because you are not aware or a lot of you are not aware how Facebook functions. And if you are aware, you kind of gross negligently take that into account. Now, I for myself hate being fucked with. And that's what this thing does at the end of the day, right? It delivers me crap so that, I stick around on their platform longer. And that's really an interesting thing. Now, how can you get away from this, right? I already mentioned that it's very hard to beat the algorithm currently. You have to be quite persistent. But for your own sake, if you, for instance, given the current political situation in the United States post-election, I want to, you're going to get either the very Biden-focused version of politics, or you're going to get the very Trump latent version of politics. Right? What am I trying to say here? So, now what I'd just like you to do, for fuck's sake, just for fuckery, is to deliberately search Facebook for things which are from the opponent's camp. If you're kind of like the Biden person, go and check for a few things on Trump and vice versa. What will happen is that the algorithm will then serve you technically a more unbiased political view of the United States. And that's something interesting to really gun for, because number one, it's going to awaken you to the technology behind it. It's going to give you an understanding. And most importantly, it's going to make you understand that you're being fucked with. And I don't know about you, but I have my reservations about that kind of thing. I just, don't like the idea. So, that being said, it is your fault in that you are, like I said, not really mindful or aware that this is happening. And you don't have to understand the algorithm. That's very important. You don't have to technically sit down and try and, technically understand what's going on. You have to imagine the algorithm like a monkey sitting on the other side of the screen, feeding you information that keeps you engaged on the platform for the longest time possible. And this is true for pretty much any social media outlet out there. Outlet, I don't know. And, that's something where we really, have to be more aware of what's going on and to kind of change that. Now, the rant for Monday is over. It was very interesting to kind of dig into that. I can only recommend that you do that. If you have questions or comments or feedback or criticism or all of the above, as always, please email them to theverybestpodcastintheworld@gmail.com. And have a successful day. If you've had your successful day, have a good night, and we will be in touch tomorrow. Peace out.